I had the evening papers, madam. Would you care to see them?
Oh, no, thank you, Frith. And I prefer that Mr. De Winter weren't troubled with them either.
I understand, madam. Permit me to say that we're all most distressed outside.
Oh, thank you, Frith.
I'm afraid the news has been a great shock to Mrs. Danvers.
Yes, I rather expected it would be.
It seems there's to be a coroner's inquest, madam?
Yes, Frith, it's purely a formality.
Of course, madam. I wanted to say that if any of us might be required to give evidence, I should be only too pleased to do anything that might help the family.
Oh, thank you, Frith. Well, I'm sure Mr. De Winter will be very happy to hear it, but I don't think anything will be necessary. Maxim.
Hello, darling.
Oh, Maxim, I'm worried about what you'll do at the inquest tomorrow.
What do you mean?
You won't lose your temper, will you? Promise me that they won't make you angry.
All right, darling. I promise.
No matter what he asks you won't lose your head.
Don't worry, dear.
They can't do anything at once, can they?
No.
Then we've a little time left to be together.
Yes.
I want to go to the inquest with you.
I'd rather you didn't, darling.
But I can't wait here alone. I promise you I won't be in any trouble to you, and I must be near you so that no matter what happens, we won't be separated for a moment.
All right, dear. I don't mind this whole thing, except for you. I can't forget what it's done to you. I've been thinking of nothing else since it happened. It's gone forever. That funny, young, lost look I loved won't ever come back. I killed that when I told you about Rebecca. It's gone. In a few hours, you've grown so much older.
Maxim.
Black Jack Brady was his name. The most important arrest I ever made. It must have been about 2 years ago now. Of course, there was no doubt about it. He was hung a month after I caught him. Hello, wait a minute. They've got old Barmy Ben up now.
You remember the late Mrs. De Winter, don't you?
She's gone.
Yes, we know that.
She went in the sea. The sea got her.
That's right, that's right. Now, we want you to tell us whether you were on the shore that last night she went sailing.
Eh?
Were you on the shore that last night she went out when she didn't come back?
I didn't see nothing. I don't want to go to the asylum. Them cruel folks there.
Now, nobody's going to send you to the asylum. All we want you to do is to tell us what you saw.
I didn't see nothing.
Come, come. Did you see Mrs. De Winter get into her boat that last night?
I don't know nothing. I don't want to go to the asylum.
Very well, you may go.
Eh?
You may go now. Now, Mr. Tad.
Yes, sir.
Step forward, please.
The evidence you give is called to me the truth, the whole truth, but the truth, sir.
I do. So help me.
The late Mrs. De Winter used to send her boat to your shipyard for reconditioning.
That's right, sir.
Can you remember any occasion when she had any sort of accident with the boat?
No, sir. I often said Mrs. De Winter was a born sailor.
Now, when Mrs. De Winter went below, as is supposed, and a sudden gust of wind came down, that would be enough to capsize the boat, wouldn't it?
Excuse me, sir, but there's a little more to it than that.
What do you mean, Mr. Tabb?
I mean, sir, the seacocks.
What are the seacocks?
Seacock? Oh, well, the seacocks are the valves to drain out the boat. They're always kept tight closed when you're afloat.
Yes?
Well, yesterday, when I examined that boat, I found they'd been opened.
Well, what could be the reason for that?
Just this. That's what flooded the boat and sunk her.
Are you implying?
That boat never capsized at all. I know it's a terrible thing to say, sir, But in my opinion, she was scuttled. And there's them holes.
What holes?
In her planking.
What are you talking about?
Of course, that boat's been underwater for over a year. And tide's been knocking her against the ridge. But it seemed to me, them holes looked as if she'd made 'em from the inside.
Then you believe she must have done it deliberately?
Couldn't have been no accident. Not with her knowledge of boats.
You knew the former Mrs. De Winter very well, I believe.
Oh, yes.
Would you believe her capable of suicide?
No, frankly, I would not. You never can tell.
You may stand down, Mr. Tabb. Mr. De Winter, please. I'm sorry to drag you back for further questioning, Mr. De Winter, but you've heard the statement of Mr. Tabb. I wonder if you can help us in any way.
I'm afraid not.
Can you think of any reason why there should be holes in the planking of the late Mrs. De Winter's boat?
Well, of course I can't think of any reason.
Has anyone ever discussed these holes with you before?
Well, since the boat has been at the bottom of the ocean, I scarcely think that likely.
Mr. De Winter, I want you to believe we all feel very deeply for you in this matter, but you must remember that I don't conduct this inquiry for my own amusement.
That's rather obvious, isn't it?
I hope that it is. Well, since Mrs. De Winter went sailing alone, are we to believe that she drove those holes herself?
Well, you may believe what you like.
Can you enlighten us as to why Mrs. De Winter should have wanted to end her own life?
I know of no reason whatever.
Mr. De Winter, however painful it may be, I have to ask you a very personal question. Were relations between you and the late Mrs. De Winter perfectly happy? Were relations between you and the late Mrs. De Winter perfectly happy?
I won't stand this any longer, and you might as well know now. My wife, she's fit.
We'll adjourn till after lunch. Mr. De Winter, I presume you'll be available for us then?
I told you should have had some breakfast. You're hungry, that's what's the matter with you.
Mr. Frith thought you might like to have some lunch from the house and sent me with it.
Oh, that's fine, man. And can you pull around the corner?
Very good, sir.
Awfully foolish to have me fainting like that.
Nonsense. If you hadn't fainted like that, I'd have really lost my temper.
Darling, please be careful.
Darling, wait here a few moments. I'll see if I can find old Frank.
Of course, darling. Don't worry about me. I'll be all right.
Sure? Yes. Try a spot of this. Do you good.
Thank you.
Are you all right?
Yes, of course.
Won't be long.
Right you are.
Hello. And how does the bride find herself today? I say, marriage with Max is not exactly a bed of roses, is it?
I think you better go before Maxim gets back.
Oh, jealous, is he? Well, I can't say I blame him. But you don't think I'm the big bad wolf, do you? I'm not, you know. I'm a perfectly ordinary, harmless bloke. And I think you're behaving splendidly over all this. Perfectly splendidly. You know, you've grown up a bit since I last saw you. It's no wonder.
What do you want, fellow?
Oh, hello, Max. Things are going pretty well for you, aren't they? Better than you ever expected. I was rather worried about you at first. That's why I came down to the inquest.
Well, I'm touched by your solicitude, but if you don't mind, we'd rather like to have our lunch.
Lunch? I say, what a jolly idea. Rather like a picnic, isn't it? Oh, I'm so sorry. Do you mind if I put this there? You know, Max, old boy, I really think I ought to talk things over with you.
Talk what things over?
Well, those holes in the planking, for one thing. Those holes that were drilled from the inside. Oh, Mullen.
Yes, sir.
Would you like a good fellow have my car filled with petrol? It's almost empty.
Very good, sir.
And Mullen, close the door, will you?
Yes, sir.
Does this bother you? You know, boy, I have a strong feeling that before the day is out, somebody's going to make use of that rather expressive, though somewhat old-fashioned term, foul play.